Welcome to the As Yet Unknown podcast. My name's Alex Snyder, your back pocket coach-sultant and connection catalyst. Entrepreneurship is a bit like bungee jumping, a big leap into the unknown, and it can be a lonely, bumpy ride. It's also one of the most empowering and liberating things you can do. Each episode is a dose of fresh perspectives designed to leave you feeling connected to innovative ideas and inspired about growing your business your way. Thanks for tuning in. Now let's have an adventure. Today we're going to talk about software as a service, automation. Technology is really a no-brainer at this point, it feels like, in business, and yet there are still so many unknowns, so many questions, so many opportunities. Today's guest was supposed to be Michael Hayles and may still be, and Michael has a incredible background spanning, construction industry and then making quite a big leap into the digital space, where he was the lead for Phase Asana practice, which was responsible for lifecycle support of Asana customers, and those include things like NASA, Space Force, multiple government agencies. So really understanding how to leverage these software as a service in order to optimize and grow and mature these businesses. And since then, Michael has co-founded a number of organizations in the entrepreneurial space, and those are in Colombia. And that is why he is not here with us, because he's actually stuck due to a mudslide and struggling with connectivity. But we are so lucky to have Alex Taylor, who is Michael's co-founder of Tech Connected, their latest endeavor, which is looking at helping businesses eliminate tedious work about work. And really anything that takes up valuable time and resources and detracts from the ability to focus on the main purpose of the business. So Alex, welcome. Thank you for jumping in last minute to fill in.
You're good.
And if you want to give a quick introduction, that would be amazing.
Sure, 100%. So my name is Alex Taylor. Even just prior to Tech Connected, my background, I was in military for 6.5 years, from 16 till 21 years old. After that, I ended up creating my own marketing agency for close to 7 years, where I worked with local businesses, software, e-commerce, people basically all from different niches and places around the world to help them with lead generation, improving their results online, of course, automation, being able to remove day-to-day tasks, of course, why me and Mike ended up deciding to do this together. And I've worked with I've been fortunate to work with some really great people. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Poor Dad. There is a bunch. Most of the clients that I work with are mini celebrities within their own niche, all verified, all pretty well known. And often optimization and the automation side is a huge part of not only making their life easier, but even down to lead generation, follow-up email sequences to generate more revenue online, remove the day-to-day tasks, and overall improve everything that they're doing online, especially if they're in growth stage and stuff like that. So yes, thanks for having me on.
Amazing. So the reason I was so excited to have this conversation about software as a service and technology is I come at this from a strategy, operations, both having been in my own startups and growing those, as well as working with my clients. And I often see a lot of challenges as companies start navigating the waters. And ironically, even if they are a tech company, this tends to be an area that can be a bit of a struggle. And one of the things I see in particular is really expecting software, particularly like a project management platform, to just magically change operations. But something I've observed, and I would love to have the more tech or recommendation side to it, is they've not taken time to maybe properly assess their needs and select a platform that aligns, get the support to really fully utilize the functionality and understand how to implement it properly, creating the processes and team that is required to actually implement and use a platform. And I think what I would sum that all up as is not leveraging change management, super users to support and monitor adoption, because I very clearly recall clients who had spent a ton of money, they put systems in, I'd jump into a meeting with them, and they would still be using a Google Doc on the side.
Yep, 100%. I have a very recent example of seeing this live in action as well. There's a client I have, I'm currently working with. He has a very successful business. They generate 6 to 7 million a year. He has a 40-man team, and he recently invited me to a platform called ClickUp. Maybe you've heard of it before. Similar to Monday, Asana, etc. All the same, essentially. And I got invited into his ClickUp board, which was a complete mess. And is a really great point that you made just then, because if you really don't understand what the platform is, what it is being used for, even the topic of having external documentation, most of that can be done with inside of a software. It's just they don't understand the software, they haven't looked into it, or they don't have that super admin or somebody who's fully competent of even be able to create automations within inside of the software. Asana is a perfect example of this. It's something that myself and Mike have used for a very long time, and other clients that I've worked with have used for a very long time. And even certain options within inside of a project can be completely automated depending on a tab which is clicked, which will then send that information to our project manager. It will also start a flow of onboarding documentation, create Slack channels, etc. Or you basically just get a very expensive MacBook Notes folder, and it's a complete mess. And if nothing isn't organized or people don't know what they're doing, you end up, especially if you have a large team, you spend a lot of money, and then you end up blaming the software, which is a common thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it often feels like it's really one or the other, the magical scenario you just described, or the latter case, which is no real change. And I think adoption is something that we, having done operational improvement, is just something we see in everything, but technology has that extra edge of discomfort, right?
Yep.
As humans, we don't love change. We think we like it.
Yes, until we actually jump in it. And even for me myself, I say all of this from a perspective of when I very first started using platforms like Asana, Monday, even Trello. I went through a phase of trying to use Trello. I would end up getting to the point where I would go back to the basics, or as I would put it, I would say, I'll go back to the basics. It's what I know. I've always used my notepad and pen because that's the best way that I work. And really, over time, I learned it is something that you truly have to force yourself into. You have to, even if you spend a whole weekend sitting there, going through videos or inside of YouTube, or of course hiring an expert to consult you through the process. If most people truly understand the power of even just CRMs, of course we're going to get into actual automation and stuff like that shortly, but even the power of correctly setting up your CRM based on your team, your projects, what you're doing, your daily tasks, what's important to you. The way I look at it is kind of like when people have a PC and at some point in their life they convert to Mac, and then you're just like, I have no idea how I ever done that in the first place. And it's the same thing when you find a really good CRM system like Asana or Monday or something similar. So yeah, I love it.
Amazing. I know one example that's coming to mind for me was around maybe gaps in selecting or gaps in understanding how to leverage a platform was actually this. It was another client that was also using a lot of external things, and the reason was, they had invested in the platform, but they collaborated with so many partners and freelancers and things, and for them it was like, well, we can't have everybody in our system, so we'll have still Google Docs and this and that. Then there were Google Docs linked to other Google Docs. And I was like, don't you have a platform that you had just invested in? And this was back in the day, this was a partner company. So that to me was sort of a gap in either understanding your need and selecting the right platform that could meet it, or understanding how to leverage the platform in an appropriate way. And I know, for myself, in one of my startups, that how to bring in collaborators and the different types of users, it was a learning curve. Is there anything that you've kind of seen, or any, best practices that you would share to people?
I mean, that's also a really, really good point, because it brings up the topic of, although all of these CRM platforms are very, very similar in many ways, There are some that would be better suited depending on their type of company structure. For example, on this point, when people end up hiring in contractors who might actually only be there from a week, 2 weeks, a 3 week type of period, we don't want to be able to create them as a user, pay a few extra $100 a month per user. It doesn't really make sense. So there are some platforms out there which are better suited. And I think obviously just trying to spend the time doing a little bit of a comparison research of this is my business, this is how we operate. Do we have a solid team that will be in here and slowly over time will start to grow? Or, even if we look at Michael's very first business in construction, let's say that they ended up using a CRM type of system. And one day we got individual contractors who are coming in, they'll be there for a little bit of time and then they're gone, their account has been deleted. So if we don't actually find the right thing, we will end up, which is a huge issue that most people have, paying a lot of money that they don't really need to pay, because there are some softwares out there which are built based on knowing their audience, knowing that people are going to be coming through, contractors will be leaving left, right, and center. So I think just spending a good amount of time, and final point here is same for me. Even when I had an agency, I had a 12-man agency at its maximum, and there was some platforms which I always went with the logic of, project management platform, they're always the same. Yes, but there are some that are better based for agencies that have consistent projects which are replicatable. Or if we're talking about an interior designer who has a completely different look on every single person's home, there will be different things that need to be done. So they might need more of a personalized type approach. So I think just doing a bit of due diligence prior and taking a look based off of what our needs are. Asana really does cover everything, and it is the one that I would most of the time point towards. Or Monday. Monday is a very colorful, fun one that I used when I had an agency. So yeah, just a bit of due diligence, I think, of trying to find what's best for that person and their business.
Something else that I've often seen is having kind of a menagerie of platforms without maybe exploring how they work together, integrations, things like that. What are maybe some of the more obvious ones or ways that you would recommend people think through that opportunity?
What do you mean? Try and rephrase it.
So, you'll get, let's say, thinking more maybe in your lead generation, you'll have, emails and Calendly and even your Trello or your Asana, and sort of layering on and a type form and just
Uh-huh.
sort of all different things to serve different purposes, but not actually having those systems or platforms connected to each other in order to kind of
Got it. That's
integrate.
great, because in a perfect world we could just use one app, one platform. We don't need anything else, and Merry Christmas. But of course, that's not going to happen. We have our call booking system, Acuity, Calendly, Schedule One. That's a separate system on its own. It has its own features and benefits. Then we can, even if I go back, and this is a good way, I guess, for us to visualize it. If I would take it from an agency type of standpoint where we would have multiple clients and I know that process inside out, we would end up using something like Acuity, which as soon as someone scheduled a call, there will be a board with inside of Monday or Asana, which is called leads. And that will automatically get imported into there in the way that I want, which is who they are, their business name, what type of project they're looking for, when is the date of our call, and here's a cute little note section so you can write all of your stuff there and keep it tidy. And even the next step after that, what typically happens then? After we had the call, we'll go through the whole proposal stage, which I would normally use something called Proposify, which same situation. We can configure it so we can select a few buttons. For example, I had need to send proposal with inside of Monday or Asana, and it would automatically automatically put together a rough baseline of a template that I would be able to come in, change out a few different aspects. Of course, even just save 5 minutes. And if you add that up over a few people throughout an entire day, I mean, that's a perfect example of the automation. We can, of course, go even further. Once the proposal has been signed, we can automatically have that moved into a different column. We can have the Slack group, which has been created, so our project manager doesn't have to worry about doing that. Onboarding docs with Dropbox or Google Sheets or whatever it is we want to use can be completely automated as well. So the way that I best found to do this, which is nice Saturday or Sunday morning, fresh cup of coffee, 7 till 10 a.m., and you go to a Miro board or Lucid Charts or whatever it is, and we sit down and we think about what is every single process within inside of our business. Okay, call comes in, what's the platform? It gets added to here, what's the platform? And if we can quickly visualize, here are all of the main steps that happen within inside of our business, we can realize, okay, so I need to look at Acuity and somehow it's going to integrate with Asana. I don't know how to do that. Google, happy days. Oh, perfect. It's an instant integration. That's what I ended up doing. And that's why one day I got very excited about the power of automations, integrations, is because most of it is logical and everything can be done. We just need to, first of all, get a wireframe of how our business works in a step-by-step type of format. And by the end of it, there is probably one or two tasks throughout our entire project which has to be manually done. It is what it is, has to be manually done. But everything else is completely automated, and of course saves a lot of time. So I love it. Yeah, I would 100% just kind of look at wireframe and everything out so we can see and visualize what that's going to look like just before we go ahead and start doing some digging about different platforms, what works well, what integrates, what doesn't. And then you might even end up firing people. Sorry, not sorry, because you realize there's completely the time that they're being there and we can remove half of their jobs or assign them to some other cool stuff so we don't have to get rid of them because we love them,
Right.
you know? But yeah,
Yeah, one of the things actually that reminds me of is also, managing your users and managing, what you need now as you figure out those integrations and maybe decommissioning older systems and platforms. And really, I guess for me, I'm always a fan of retros, right? You want to do retrospectives on all kinds of things, and whether that's the use or the performance of the platform, because I think you can end up with a bit of a graveyard of discarded or half-used tech, and actually the cost can really add up. Um,
uh-huh.
so, is there anything that you use as sort of a checklist, or someone in your organization maybe actually who would be more responsible for managing as this part of business just becomes so much larger?
100%. And I think it would be easier for me to say this compared to a CEO who has a 500 plus team who is just like, I know we have a problem, figure out a solution. Because I would want to at least understand foundationally what that platform does, who it's for, what the pieces are.
Mm,
So when I communicate with my project manager, I can say, this is what we're doing. Here's the individual things. This is your world. Of course, we can change it all, but here's the important pieces that we know that I need for my information on a day or a week or a monthly basis. And really, I think one of the best things that I found is, which I ended up changing over one day from Trello to Monday. I hired a new project manager and I spoke to him. I said, fine, I'm going to do things a little bit different. Control is a big issue for me. I know that. And when I ended up hiring them and they came in, I said, whilst you're here, I love who you are. I can tell that you're a great person. I know you understand this role very well. What is your favorite software to use and why? And they've gone through every single sprint or scrum training possible that they understand the framework of what needs to be done. And ultimately, that's their world. Hopefully, our job is just to report directly to the project manager or COO or whatever it might be, so we can gather the information. Really, I think as the CEO, CMO, you shouldn't really want to be spending much time in there. You should just be
yeah.
paying for it, and all of our team are in there, and the project manager is handling everything. They have, of course, their weekly calls. After they have their call, they go in and assign individual tasks into different sections or inside of the board. I mean, even when I say it out loud, I know like how much of a dream it is, but I also know that a lot of people don't do it, and it
Mm,
saves a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of stress. So give it to the project manager, let him understand that this is his world and he can do whatever he wants to best make this fit and work for our team. So, and then we have other stuff to communicate. Slack, right? We can integrate
mm.
Asana or Monday directly into Slack. Hey, we got a notification on the board. Go check the board. Everything works. Everything can be automated. Loads of times can be sent.
Amazing. So I just wanted, I think that's Juliana who's message as a project manager, automations are key for efficiency. I love integrations between softwares. Thank you for jumping on here. I think that there's a little bit of an issue with the stream, but I did drop the Vimeo link. So hopefully people are jumping in here if they can't see us on LinkedIn. And we love to hear comments and questions. Talk to me a little bit about automations and I would specifically, for me, as strategy operations, like risk mitigation is a big one.
Uh-huh. Yes, 100%. I mean, if most of the time, I think these types of processes, when it comes to automations, work extremely well for large companies, especially if we go through due diligence processes. For example, I've worked with companies in the past where it's a little bit difficult for them to just run with something, get it live, see how it gets on, and we'll come back and have a look at the results. We need to go through all of due diligence processes to make sure that the copywriting is right, all of the assets have been approved. This is something over time that I ended up creating a separate board for. Still, project manager's role. He will have the last piece to take a look on this, but a separate board, of course. Everyone use your imagination here. We would have a separate board here, which at some point we do have to create a checklist, of what are all of the pieces that we know are necessary for us to go through, for us to be compliant, even just that on its own, for us to be compliant where the project can be launched, happy days. The automation side, I mean, would I, if I think there are a lot more things that I could focus the conversation on specific to do with automation. When it comes to like a due diligence type of example, I think that is something that is majority manual type of tasks. But I mean, it's probably because it's my life that I might even be undervaluing small little things of like, oh, okay, when the due diligence process is done, we click a button, it gets sent to the advertising team to say that it's been approved. Our project manager has automatically added that to the ongoing board, so it's not currently an issue. There's all of these little things which you can 100% do, and once again, coming back to Asana really is the big daddy, but huge companies or small companies will use, because there is a lot of these tools, even if it's not native integration, meaning with inside of Asana, they've got all of these different apps which are directly integrated. If you have a developer on your team, or even if you spent a few $100s and hired one temporarily, with any type of API or webhook, we can make anything talk to each other any point, especially with stuff that's coming out with ChatGPT and stuff like this now. I think it's always super exciting, but there's loads of small little tasks that we can do throughout the process, especially with Asana and platforms like that.
Yeah. And I think, you hit on a really key point there, which is with anything, but particularly in anything that's newer or emerging, is, looking for the opportunity to leverage expertise, knowing that you need to invest early, having someone who knows what they're doing come in and either show you or do it for you is just the fastest way up the learning curve, right? We all hear
100%.
buy back your time.
Yep.
I think that's really important. One thing, we talked earlier about adoption is people often don't change until the pain is bad enough,
Uh-huh.
right? We all like to think that we change because we want to achieve, but often it's much more about pain points. But I'm wondering whether there are some, a story or an example or, 2 points on both the pain and the gain side that you would want to call out for why, um, automation is the way forward.
This is cool, because there has been times, especially with the other side of my work of what I do, I'll end up speaking to someone specific to do for funnels, copywriting, paid advertising, and I'll come in and do something completely separate for a project, not really a focus on automation. They will add me into their project management system, and I come in and take a look, and absolutely nothing has been automated whatsoever. The times where I've made this super great for the client is they already trust me, not necessarily what they have seen online or anything like that. So they already know if I was to come in and say, all of this could be automated, you could be spending all of this time, you're giving Sally from HR these tasks, she has no idea what she's doing. All of it can be automated on its own, she could be focusing more on better stuff. I think what you need to do is I think you need to change platform. I spoke to someone about this last night, actually, funny enough. I think you should change platform. I think we should be having all of our communication and conversations here in Slack, for example. And thankfully, it's only a few times, unfortunately, because it's also the same story of life. Even if you look at other people around, you're like, I will learn from other people's mistakes. Most of the time, it doesn't happen. Unfortunately, you do have to go through the pain. And even when we have these initial calls that we have with people, right? It's just like, hey, how can I help? It's like, we got so much stuff going on. We don't know what to do about it. Help, help, help. So there are a few times when I feel like the showing real life examples of what we've done for other people could inspire people to at least try it out, as long as they're disconnected from it. That's most of the time an issue that I've seen is like, oh, new platform, that means I need to learn what the platform is, all of my team are going to have to change, etc. Awesome. I will consult your team throughout the whole of the process, a call every single week where we will be going through all of the most common things that they need to know specific to your business model. So
Mm.
obviously, best case scenario, find someone who knows exactly what they're doing, get them to consult and walk you through the whole process. Uh,
Ooh, all right. I think we just lost Alex. Hopefully he will jump back on. Oh, there you are.
I don't know what happened.
We
We're
lost you
good.
for a moment. All good.
We're good. It was only a quick second, so we're
Yes.
good. Yep.
Wonderful. So if there's any comments or questions, please drop them in either Vimeo or LinkedIn. I'm having a look at both. If you joined us on LinkedIn and couldn't hear or see us, I do apologize. But I'll make sure to get this recording out. So as we're getting close to the half hour, and I'm going to try and keep us there and respect your time, is there any kind of big takeaways, or if there's one thing someone was to take away from this conversation that you would want them to know?
I would, even before you start looking at changing platforms, hiring people, spending money, basically, I
Mm,
would take a little bit of time. And I'm the type of person which I want to always try and be informed. So if anybody sat here right now listening to us and saying, we'll have a few different types of people. Oh, I know I should have done this a long time ago. Or, oh, this is super interesting. And maybe I just haven't come across this right now because what I have works, or I feel like it works. But I know that there are people out here which solely do this as their job, to come into small or large organizations and ultimately save them time, save them money. I would just spend a few hours doing their own research before you start hiring people, changing platforms. Most of these platforms are free anyway for a certain trial period.
mhm,
So Monday, for example, Asana, go and sign up, take a browse around, go just like when I buy a new Mac, a new iPhone, I go straight to YouTube and type in the 15 things I need to know about this platform. Right. And I will come up and it will tell me all of these cool suggestions. And I'm like, oh, that could actually save me a lot of time. Maybe I'll put one or two projects in there over the period of a month and test it internally with myself and see how my team might be able to manage with it. Just
mm,
like before we push any product out, we'll have initial prior testing. And that's what I would probably do. Even if you're like, this is cool, I don't know what to do, I want to go hire someone, I would still spend a small amount of your time taking a look into it, because there are so many platforms out there, and
mm,
doing a little bit of your own research first. But 100%, if there are some pieces within inside of it, I don't have a project management software. There is zero which is being. If there is zero which is being automated, there are improvements to be made. So I would take a look into all of this in this spare time, and then of course potentially look at hiring someone in, as long as budget fits, so they can save a huge amount of time.
mhm.
Or depending on their company size, what they do, their tech experience, just go and do it yourself. So
Yeah.
yep.
I love that, I think the curiosity, which entrepreneurs tend to have, and it's that
Uh-huh.
fine line of like down the wormhole and knowing when to make a decision and bring an expert in.
Uh-huh.
And I know I've heard kind of a lot of stats around automation, but just to make sure that everyone understands what we're talking about, you know, this is things like saving 8 hours a week per employee,
100%.
depending on the role. Imagine an extra day a week to do really meaningful strategic growth, sales, whatever that might be, and not, all the minutia.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like that, this is what we're talking about.
100%. Yep. And of
Yeah.
course, depending on company size, what our day-to-day tasks are, there are some companies out there that could literally be 90% automated. There are some out there who could probably cap out at 30%, because it's a completely manual type of business. It's one-on-one consulting, for example, but we could still have all of our documentation. Our project manager has individual Slack channels which have been assigned. Invoices are getting sent out. There will always be some good stuff that we can automate. I would, I would just, once again, spend the time to go through it and take a look, find out what might potentially be best for some people. But you will inevitably be saving some amount of time, and especially if you're in a role where that time could be better used, and we're coming up with, I don't have time to look at future growth plans. Yes, you do, especially if you start automating some stuff. 100% you do. So yeah, you can save a lot of time with this, of course, and money. That's it. We're paying for these softwares, the automations, but eventually, not even eventually, near immediately, you will start
Yeah.
saving money. Even employees, hires, etc., all money saved.
Yeah. We had a question here that said, I'm new about this SaaS. How can I start SaaS automation in the hospitality industry? Is there anything you have insights you'd want to share on
I
that?
would, to be able to give a good answer, I would love to know specific hospitalities of a broad, a broad niche. If I could get something specific about what it is exactly what we do, 100%. But I mean, there is, once again, there is absolutely zero industry or zero job role or anything out there which you couldn't automate some specific tasks with inside of what we're doing, even if it's invoicing, accounting. That is a huge part which can be automated. Proposal comes in. Even for me, I don't even remember what I use right now. I used to use QuickBooks and whatnot, but I don't deal with any of it. But whenever a proposal will get in, it will automatically get sent to my accounting software. The accountant will be notified because I've scheduled an email notification of a new payment, because we don't have hundreds. We'll have 10 to 20 new payments every single month. So every time someone comes in, he'll get an email, hey, new payment, cool. He can come in, put it where it's supposed to be. Awesome. So even actual invoicing, accounting would be a huge piece that we could end up automating. Payroll, of course, that should hopefully be a huge part, which is nearly automated. Of course, we need to do due diligence and stuff like that, but even preparing everything is easily automatable.
So the question around hospitality said niche in restaurant and bar. So I guess we're talking, I would assume maybe single or kind of multiple locations, point of sale, reservations.
I mean, off the top of my head, and
Anything
of
like that.
course, this is something where we would spend a bunch of time really trying to understand the business, but even down to any fulfillment, shipping, restocking, and stuff like that, that should all be automated. I hope that most of it is, because it seems even super logical, which means us accounting for stock, us accounting for even down to profits and stuff like that should be hopefully automated. I would have to think about it more, because I'm yeah, especially for that type of industry. That is I'm not gonna lie, that is one where we're not in tech here, and there's documentation that's being sent out all of the time, manual invoices, it's waiters potentially, but there will be some stuff. If I had a good solid half an hour to think about it, I'm sure I could come up with some very good stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I think restaurant and bar industry, having been in it a while back, but knowing people who are still in it, is surprisingly not very advanced in the
Uh-huh.
operational side often. So, they'll leverage reservation systems, but I think beyond that, there is a lot of manual things that go on, unless you're talking about, a larger maybe
Yep.
hotel.
Yep. And even
So,
the reservation point that you made, right? I mean, I booked a reservation last night for a restaurant here in Medellin, and obviously this will only work depending on the standard or quality of what the restaurant is. If it's walk-in, if we need reservations and stuff like that. I mean, it's 2023. If it is a situation where there's limited tables and we're not using a booking system of some type, and people are going to Google, checking our business, giving us a call and stuff, I mean, even if you don't want to do that, there should at least be WhatsApp communication, which should be 75% automated. When do you want to come? How many people are you looking for? So whoever's handling the WhatsApp, sat in there on their coffee break, they can just look and just go, okay, do we have time? Yes. So hopefully all of that stuff should already be done. But that's a good point, actually, because even like down to booking systems, confirmation emails, cancellations and stuff like that, that should all be automated, I think. 100%.
yeah. Great. I think that was a great question. Thank you. And I think just to summarize, you've got kind of the front of house reservation systems, and whether that's a full one or maybe using some WhatsApp automation assistant, and then thinking obviously about the back of house in terms of, inventory, stock, turnover, and even maybe scheduling of your team and,
100%.
into your payroll. Those are all the areas that you could be leveraging. We had a question from the score. I think that's Juliana, if I'm not mistaken. Any new platforms or apps that integrate into platforms that you would suggest learning more about and keeping an eye out? So what's
This
the
is a,
cutting
this is a
edge?
good This is a good point, and especially for the sake of time and whatnot, the way that I would say it is, this is actually, and no offense whatsoever, this is what most people's biggest problems is they're like, oh, what's the newest platform? What's the newest thing that is out there? Doesn't matter. Monday is absolutely fantastic. Asana is fantastic. Trello is great as well. I wouldn't even go out there and start Googling because you will find them. And when you do, you'll be like, oh, this little color scheme looks better than Monday, which has been set up for 7 years. So I'm going to change that out. And yeah, shiny object syndrome type of situation, But obviously, that's not directed straight towards you to score. But I don't even know. I don't even know what the answer is because I'm not out there looking for the new thing. I know what the main ones are, which are Trello, Asana, Monday. They, in my mind, are the three most reputable, easiest to integrate, reasonably affordable platforms. But if I guarantee you, if I go to Google right now, I'll find one that was created yesterday. So I would personally try and refrain from looking into too much of that stuff. Unless we start seeing them running ads. If we see people running ads, that means they're probably in growth stage. If they're in growth stage, then that means they've already probably had a good amount of people come through and sign up, which means that it's proven product. Maybe then I might consider it if they came up with a free trial or something like that. But I would stick to
Interesting.
that.
Having the money to run an ad is an indication of maybe how far along.
100%.
Um,
100% it is. Yeah.
yeah, and I think the question I was gonna clarify, but I think you've just dropped a comment there, is also just around like connecting platforms. So I know, back in the day, like
That's a great
Zapier
point.
was
Yeah.
like a really good way to bring things together. And I
Huh?
think that's maybe a little bit of what Juliana's asking for. Is there anything there that you want to elaborate on, and then we'll wind down?
100%. I mean, most people nowadays know Zapier. Zapier is the most foundational middleware type of platform that will allow us to communicate from two things to another. Even if it's something as basic as I'm using Google Calendars and I'm using Acuity for my booking system and I'm using Monday for my project management board. When a lead comes in, select it here, add them to Monday. Most things can be done with inside of Zapier. I wouldn't even look at external. There are a few different types of platform. Obviously, Zapier has a fantastic reputation, and it's really, really great. Unless we start getting to custom platforms which have been fully coded ourselves, where we need API or webhook integrations to be done, nearly 80% of things I would say can be done in Zapier. And I mean, Zapier is free as well, up to a certain amount of Zaps every single month. I believe it's 100. So 99% of things that you can think of can be integrated if it's not native, meaning Asana saying when people book through Calendly, like automatically understand it and pull it into our account. Zapier will be able to do it. So if that's the case, we're more than likely, if you're looking into it and Zapier can't do it, that's probably where I would look to hire someone because it will probably need some manual development work. But you can do everything with Zapier.
Amazing. Yeah, and I think you made a really good point, which is it can do everything, but depending on the complexity you want to do, you may want to bring in um, a specialist. And I'm again thinking of just an example where I saw somebody who had so many Zaps set up in this system that was just convoluted and impossible to manage. And so it was like taking a tool beyond what it's meant for.
Uh-huh.
They could have had a simpler, more reliable system done by a developer for them. So,
No doubt.
that fine line of, find the tools, do it yourself, test, get creative. But then when you get to a certain size, again, the risk that you may introduce in a in a
Yep.
DIY solution can
Yeah,
be.
no doubt. Yeah, small stuff, like, hey, when somebody messages me, send it to my project manager. You might be able to figure that out on your own.
Yeah,
More
but the
complex stuff,
like
for sure.
53 step, 8
Yeah,
platform integration, looping zaps, maybe you
yes,
want to
I
see if there's
probably
a
need that
simpler
separate people. Yeah, for
code.
sure.
Well, Alex, I cannot thank you enough, not only for joining us, but also last minute jumping in for Michael, who did get trapped in a zone due to a mudslide. These are the challenges of living in different regions. And people who are interested in learning more about what you do, Tech Connected, um, do you want to just give us the 2 minutes around what
Sure.
you guys are building, how people can get in touch with you and learn more?
100%, which I imagine, of course, because we had some issues with LinkedIn, you'll take this video, post it there and say, sorry about it, here's our
I
links, and here's
will.
Mike who should have been here. So first of all, of course, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, which you can check this video at some point today, I assume. We're inside of my profile, then you can see Tech Connected itself, which that's exactly what we do. We help businesses, save time, save money by automating all of their day-to-day types of tasks. I also have a marketing agency where I help with lead generation, paid advertising, and automations, but more in the sense of email automations where we're looking directly to generate revenue and not have to do anything. Not necessarily business process automations, but all of that information you can find directly inside of my LinkedIn. So of course, you're more than welcome to go over there and take a look. So, just shoot me a message anyway. I'm pretty helpful most of the time. I might not charge you. So just shoot me a message and I'll be around.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for your time, all the insights. Hopefully, enough people were able to join, and I will get the replay out as soon as possible. So thank you to everyone who joined, asked your questions, and looking forward to the next one. We've got Monday with Francois de Neuville talking about self-mastery in order to grow your business.
Very nice.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in. Our goal is to create connections and inspire conversations. So please subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast with your network if you enjoyed today's episode. Sharing is caring. If you're ready to take your business to the next level and are curious how I can help, click the link in the episode notes to schedule a call. Got questions or topics you want us to discuss? Click the link in the episode notes to share them with us. Your question might even get featured in an upcoming episode. And remember, this podcast is not intended to replace legal, tax, or other kinds of professional advice. Thanks for joining us on this adventure. We'll catch you on the flip side.